Dark scandals, daring heists, and criminal empires. This week's headlines could fuel a Netflix series. First up, chilling new documents showing Bryan Kohberger's troubling behavior at Washington State University before the Idaho slayings, raising questions of missed red flags. Then, in Dubai, thieves thought they pulled off the ultimate $25 million pink diamond heist until police caught them hours later. Across Europe, Norway reels as Crown Princess Mette-Marit's son, Marius Borg Hoiby, faces 32 charges. And finally, cartel boss Ismael Mayo Zambada prepares to plead guilty in a historic drug trafficking case. The story of Bryan Kohberger still feels like something out of a psychological thriller that no one would believe if it weren't so tragically real. Now, with hundreds of pages of newly released documents, the unsettling portrait of his behavior before the Idaho slayings sharpens into focus. What emerges is not just a chilling glimpse into his academic and social life at Washington State University, but also the missed warnings, the eerie patterns, and the unnerving obsession with control that many now look back on with a sickening sense of hindsight. Inside WSU's criminology program, Kohberger didn't exactly blend in. Far from it. Fellow students and even faculty began flagging him as someone who seemed less like a budding academic and more like a potential predator. Sources describe him as condescending, hostile toward women, and oddly fixated on conflict. One professor reportedly worried aloud that if he ever managed to get his PhD, he'd end up abusing his position of power over female students. She even pushed to have his funding cut, calling him the kind of man who would someday make headlines for all the wrong reasons. Others noticed smaller but no less disturbing details. He would linger in offices, blocking female graduate students from leaving until someone intervened. There was even talk of an apartment break-in where perfume and underwear vanished, a theft that in hindsight seems like an ominous prelude. Classmates said he liked to talk about physical burglary, his supposed academic interest, but the way he spoke about it left many feeling uneasy. And then came the slayings of 4 University of Idaho students in November 2022. Afterward, his behavior reportedly shifted. He no longer brought his phone to class, stopped chiming in on discussions about the slayings, even though the entire campus couldn't stop talking about them, and appeared increasingly disheveled. One fellow student remembered spotting his knuckles bloodied just before the slayings, looking as though he'd been in a violent struggle. Disturbed enough, she eventually reported it to the police tip line. Even more unnerving are the comments he allegedly made to another PhD student weeks after the slayings. He speculated the slayer must have been pretty good and mused aloud that maybe it was just a one-and-done kind of crime. The casualness of it, the almost academic detachment, was unsettling, like he was analyzing a case study rather than standing in the shadow of a crime he himself committed. Once in jail, his strange habits continued. Cellmates recalled how obsessed he seemed with media coverage about himself. At first, he'd watch every channel with an almost giddy fascination, apparently thrilled at his own notoriety. But when the coverage touched his family or friends, he'd instantly flip the channel. Eventually, he stopped watching altogether. Instead, he developed compulsive routines, burning through 3 bars of soap a week, scrubbing his hands raw with hour-long showers, and demanding fresh bedding and clothing every day. It was as if control, routine, and cleansing were his last defense in a world where his mask had finally slipped. And while one man obsessed over his own notoriety, another group across the globe had a very different fixation on a glittering stone worth a staggering $25 million. In Dubai, a city where wealth gleams brighter than the desert sun and luxury feels almost ordinary, thieves thought they had pulled off the ultimate score. A rare pink diamond, brought in from Europe by a seasoned trader, became the centerpiece of a carefully staged trap. The dealer was invited to what seemed like a legitimate viewing at a lavish villa, supposedly for a wealthy client ready to pay big. But when he laid the gem out for inspection, the setup revealed itself. In a flash, the jewel vanished, and the dealer was left making a frantic emergency call, admitting the unthinkable: the stone was gone. For a crime that bold, one would expect the culprits to be plotting an escape straight out of a heist film: fast cars, private jets, and maybe a safe house in some hidden corner of the world. Instead, their victory lap lasted less than 8 hours. Dubai's police, equipped with some of the most advanced surveillance and AI technology anywhere, closed in with surgical precision. By the end of the day, 3 men, quietly described only as being from an Asian country, were in custody, their faces blurred in video footage but their plot exposed for everyone to see. The speed of the capture has left many intrigued. Was it sheer overconfidence that tripped them up? Did the city's famously tight security infrastructure prove impossible to outwit? Insiders suggest the thieves may not have fully grasped just how heavily monitored Dubai is. In a place where diamond trading is both big business and a symbol of prestige, security is more than just cameras and patrols. It's an ecosystem built to protect the shine of the UAE's reputation. Every movement, every interaction, every suspicious detail seems to be flagged in real time, leaving little chance for a clean getaway. The visuals released by officials only added to the drama. CCTV clips showed the gang in action, their moves caught from multiple angles, their attempt at finesse reduced to grainy evidence on looping screens. The footage of their arrest, with faces deliberately blurred, seemed almost theatrical, a reminder that in Dubai, even crime stories get staged for maximum impact. And yet, halfway across the world, the headlines take on an even darker turn. Not about jewels or heists, but about the private life of European royalty now dragged into the harsh glare of scandal. Norway has been shaken by charges against Marius Borg Hoiby, the son of Crown Princess Mette-Marit, who now faces an astonishing 32 criminal counts, including 4 charges of grape. For years, Hoiby was the ordinary royal child, the one born before his mother married Crown Prince Haakon and stepped into the polished life of monarchy. Unlike his step-siblings, Princess Ingrid Alexandra and Prince Sverre Magnus, he had no formal duties, no official role to play. But now, instead of remaining in the background, he's standing at the center of one of the most disturbing royal scandals Norway has ever seen. Insiders reveal the case stretches back years. The grapes he is accused of committing allegedly took place in 2018, 2023, and even 2024. Shockingly, one occurring after the police had already launched an investigation. Layered on top are charges of AB, vandalism, and violating restraining orders against former partners. Perhaps most disturbing, prosecutors say he secretly filmed the genitals of multiple women without their consent, adding a voyeuristic edge that makes the accusations feel even more chilling. The full indictment, they note, carries a potential sentence of up to 10 years in prison. What unsettles many is not just the severity of the charges, but the fact that one of them was allegedly committed while Hoiby was already under scrutiny. To some, it suggests recklessness or even a sense of invincibility. He has admitted to some offenses, AB and vandalism tied to an August 2024 incident, but flatly denies the most serious accusations of grape and sustained domestic violence. His defense insists he will plead guilty only to lesser charges, rejecting the picture painted by the prosecution. The royal palace has taken a careful stance, releasing a statement that the case belongs to the courts and will be handled like any other, a quiet attempt to distance the institution from his personal downfall. The man himself admits to using alcohol and cocaine and says that during one key incident he was spiraling under mental strain. Whether those admissions serve as explanation, mitigation, or simply another tragic element to the story is for the courts to decide. But the timing and the breadth of the accusations mean Norway is bracing for a case that will dig deep into the private life of someone who grew up inside palace walls, yet now stands accused of acts that could scar lives forever. And while Norway reckons with a royal scandal, across the Atlantic the United States prepares to confront a man whose name has long been synonymous with global drug violence, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the elusive Sinaloa cartel boss, who after decades of evasion is set to plead guilty in a case that reads like a blueprint of narco warfare. At 77, Zambada is no ordinary defendant. For years, he was the ghostly counterpart to Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, less flamboyant, more strategic, and somehow untouchable. Now, after pleading not guilty last year to a laundry list of charges including trafficking, money laundering, and overseeing armies of gunmen, he is preparing for a dramatic shift in court. A Brooklyn judge has set a plea hearing for late August, fueling speculation about what the old kingpin might finally admit to and what might still remain unsaid. Prosecutors describe Zambada's reign as vast and merciless. Under his command, the Sinaloa cartel grew from a regional smuggling group into a sprawling empire that pumped heroin, cocaine, and meth across American borders by the ton. His arsenal wasn't just drugs, it was men with military-grade weapons, squads of sicarios trained to torture and slay with inventive cruelty, and a web of alliances that stretched into every level of the underworld. Insiders even claim that just months before his capture, Zambada ordered the slaying of his own nephew, a reminder that in the cartel world, blood ties often matter less than loyalty. The drama of his arrest only added to the legend. For over 2 decades, U.S. authorities hunted him without success. Then, in 2024, he surfaced in Texas aboard a private jet, alongside one of El Chapo's sons. Zambada insists he was kidnapped in Mexico and forced onto that plane, a bizarre twist that some view as a cartel power play disguised as betrayal. Whatever the truth, he was in U.S. custody, and the walls of impunity he had built around himself began to crumble. Just last week, Mexico handed over 26 high-ranking cartel figures to U.S. custody, signaling a deepening partnership as Washington ramps up pressure on the networks feeding America's drug crisis. Among those extradited were leaders tied to both the Sinaloa cartel and its brutal rival CJNG. Even whispers from Washington suggest the Trump administration is weighing military action against cartels, an unprecedented escalation that Mexico's president firmly rejects, insisting there will be no invasion. With Zambada in court, the Chapitos still on the battlefield, and geopolitical tension simmering, the cartel saga feels less like the end of an era and more like the prologue to an even bloodier one. That's all for this video, folks. We'll see you next time.